Good evening, I'm Bill Kelly. Tonight's program is respectfully dedicated to the men who died aboard the Myers 3 and to the families they left behind. Our thanks to sponsors who gave up their time tonight so that we could make the following presentation uninterrupted. I also want to acknowledge the work of our crew. Mark Thompson, cameraman, with additional photography by John O'Brien, soundman Doug Pete, editor Jerry McDonald, and associate producer Joe Murphy. I thank them for their caring and for their sensitivity, and I thank you for watching. On January 24th, 1987, the Myers 3 was lost with all hands in a wicked storm off the southwest coast of Newfoundland. Nobody can really know, let alone describe, what the families have been through. But if anybody ever came close, it was the great Newfoundland poet, E.J. Pratt.
It took the sea 1,000 years to trace the granite features of this cliff in crag and scarp and base. It took the sea an hour one night, an hour of storm, to place the sculpture of these granite seams upon a woman's face.
Here is a bulletin from our CBC radio newsroom. An inshore dragger is missing on the southwest coast. Few details are available, but the dragger was reportedly caught in a sudden winter storm and failed to return to port. It isn't known how many crew members are aboard the dragger, and there's no word on survivors.
I wasn't never worried that night. It was a night probably I should have been, but I wouldn't. I went to bed. And after I got there, it was a real stormy night. But then around 1:30, 1 o'clock like that, around that area, I woke up. And that's just after what I had been dreaming, that he did die. But we found out the next day that it wasn't a dream.
Here is the CBC West Newfoundland News. 5 men are missing and presumed drowned in the sinking of an inshore dragger near Codroy. The 45-foot Myers 3 was last seen late yesterday afternoon, just as a vicious winter storm packing winds up to 80 knots was moving into the area. The Myers 3 was owned and operated by 4 brothers from Bartlett's Harbor on the Great Northern Peninsula, and all were on board when tragedy struck.
The Myers 3 sank just outside Codroy, not 10 minutes steam from the wharf. Local mariners figure a monstrous wave struck her broadside, just as she rounded a point to turn into the harbor. Death would have been mercifully quick for brothers David, Clarence, Jim, and Joseph Myers, and for their friend, Yan Hines. Just an average breeze today at the lighthouse in Codroy. Henry Reed is used to this, but the veteran lightkeeper says he's never seen anything to compare with the night the Myers 3 went down. The storm came out of nowhere.
I've been there 28 years, and I've seen storms, all right, but not so quick. It didn't come so quick as this. It came right out of nowhere, like. Within minutes, it struck. It's almost too bad for a human to stand up. That day was so bad again as what this day. Could have been a lot more boats last year, actually at the same time.
In Bartlett's Harbor and other nearby communities, the loss of 5 young men was a catastrophe. No one was left untouched. Everyone shared in the burden of grief. The brothers were survived by their parents, Marjorie and Joseph Myers, and by their wives and children. David, by his wife Susan, and daughters Leslie, Monique, and Nancy. Joseph, by his wife Doreen, and son Gorvin. Clarence, by his wife Lucy, daughter Katrina, and son Neil. And Jim, by his wife Rosemary, and son Vincent. Yan Hines was the son of Ralph and Virginia Hines of Reefs Harbor. For the immediate families, it was a time of unimaginable anguish.
Believe it? No, I still don't believe it, but for sure. No, believe it. don't know what I'd done. I wouldn't be able to say. It was about 9 o'clock the next morning, the phone rang. And a minute the phone rang at this day. So I got up, went downstairs. And Dad was on the phone, and he said, Sands furnace, that's my sister, eh? Saying. He said, Sands furnace is broke down. He said, and she wants me to come over and fix it. So Dad went on over, and when he come back, Sands was with him. And I said to her, I said, my dear, I said, you're a good one this morning coming over here. I said, and leaving the poor youngsters over in the cold. And, well, wouldn't you smile, eh? Well, I said, there's something wrong, is it? I thought it was something so minor as the furnace broke. No, she said, the furnace not broke. No. And she, Wince's mother, lives with my sister, and she's 85 or 86-year-old. And I said, ain't a bit sick. No, she said. I said, well, she must have died. No, she said, there's nothing wrong with none of we. And I could see then, by then, there was something really wrong. Well, I said, there must be something wrong with, well, I said, there's only one person coming on the beat. And then Dad couldn't keep it no longer. He said, the boat's coming. Well, from that point on, I don't know what I done. I phoned for the bass, because I worked with them last winter, like the Kings, eh? So I phoned up there. And when I'm wrong, Mr. King answered the phone. I said, is it true? So I knew then that they was gone, in a way, but you wouldn't make yourself believe it, eh? So I got ready and went for that. And it was that dirty, you couldn't see from house to house.
Why was so bad?
Oh, my dear, it's the worst day in history. I didn't believe it, I suppose, but you knew, eh? You knew, but you couldn't believe it. That feeling hadn't been away. Just, I can't believe it.
The last thing he said to me, he said, when I go, he said, get someone to stay with you. And only for that, I wouldn't have got anybody to stay right. And I'd only gone a couple days when accident happened. Jim was the type of person, right? He never worried about a thing. And he was, you know, he had responsibility now, but he was kind of happy-go-lucky.
Right.
He never worried about anything.
Right.
He didn't see any need in worrying, you know? And to tell you the truth, now, I'm not a great big worrier, hey?
Right.
But, you know, I never really thought that would happen. As if I had known, he wouldn't have went. We don't know what these things say.
Well, a fisherman's wife, she always, you know, she spends her time waiting for her husband to come home. Now, to me, I wait to go home to him.
Doreen's husband, Joseph, or June as he was known, was the skipper of the boat. She believes he came to her on the night he died.
I got 2 dogs, and they were in the porch. And when June came in through the door, he always drove the dogs out. And there's a half door where you come in the porch. And they were up to the half door, and they were frantic to get out. And I opened the door and let them out. And they were going crazy to get out. And I stood by the door and waited for them to come back, but they didn't come. And I went back to bed. I didn't sleep, but I was peaceful. I wasn't afraid. And the storm was raging then. You know, when I got up the next morning, I didn't put any meaning to it. But when they came and told me, I knew what it was then. He came home. The only way he could. He came home. He always told me that if he died, if there was any way that he could come back, he would. So I feel that he did come back for a very short time. And he moved through the house. And he left me peace.
The bodies of 2 men have been recovered from the Myers 3, but searchers have all but given up hope of finding the other 3. It's feared they've been washed out to sea.
In Bartlett's Harbour, the Roman Catholic Church was filled to overflowing as grief-stricken residents gathered to pay their last respects to Clarence Myers, one of the two men found. Many mourners stood outside during the hour-long service in sub-zero temperatures. A memorial service was also held for the three Myers brothers lost at sea.
And therefore we come together not only to share grief, but we come together to pray.
Now, you have Clarence with you here in the community. They found the body. Did that make it easier for you?
I don't know. Sometimes I suppose I do. But most time to me, don't seem like it just seems like they're gone. You know, they're gone away and never came back because, well, I don't even want to think about the funeral part. And, but sometimes when I think about the other ones too, I know that eventually it'll be easier. Some days you go through the day and it seems a bit better because you work and you keep yourself busy. But if it takes any time to think, it seems just so fresh as it was yesterday.
Yan Hines, the other man whose body was recovered, wasn't a crew member of the Myers Three. The 23-year-old was an inshore fisherman who had gone to Port aux Basques on his holidays. In a cruel twist of fate, he was only along for the ride.
We never knew the boy until last fall. I heard of him, Yan Hines, but that was about it, and out in the sea. And he and his family was selling scallops to the plant here, and me and Dave used to work there. So most of the time, like last fall when it got late, we'd be home, and all the fishermen come. There'd be only 3 or 4 scallop draggers. They had come to the house to get it. So Ewan usually be the last one, and when he'd come, he got in and staying, having a cup of tea and probably a bottle of beer or something like that, And he made it regular. He used to keep coming back. And he got talking about Port. I always wanted to go to Port aux Basques, he said. I want to go up last winter so bad, he said, for a trip, I couldn't get on. He said, Dave, if you go next winter, he said, I'm going with you. Dave, come on, more the merrier, you know. So that was all I thought of it, I never ever dreamed of anyone going for a holiday up to Port aux Basques in the wintertime fishing. It would be out of the question almost. When the boat got lost that night and they said there was 5 crewmen on her, Well, I said, it's not our boat. I said, because our boat got 4. And then someone mentioned you. Well, I said, Ewan is with Dave for sure. And that's who he was with then. Yeah. You know how stuff works out? It's unreal.
Me and he lobster fishing, we stopped fishing one boat together, eh? When something like that comes to you, I mean, you got to live with it, eh? I know there's other families must have something to live with too, eh? We got his body and gotten, we know his race too, but that is some help, I suppose. You know where the body is too, eh? Probably never get over it, I suppose, at least up after a while, you know, but well, you have to keep going, you know? There's not much, nothing you can do about it, is it, after something happens.
At the Bartlett's Harbour graveyard, right across from Susan Myers' house, there are 4 wooden markers and 4 grave sites, but only 1 body. 3 of the Myers brothers do not have a final resting place. Susan Myers finds that especially hard.
Well, out there, it's really nothing for we say. You go out there and you gotta pretend that that's what they're doing. But when you go to Cadra, you know that's what they're doing. But if you had the body, it would be better, because every time you go anywhere and you look out at the water, they could be there. You really don't know. Because you feel now most of the time you're alone, eh? But when you take the kids, you're not there. You got them. So you really got to put yourself together. You can't take yourself. Very little of everything to myself, because I know I'm going to make it. Somehow. Worst I find is that he's gone, and he's missing so much. I can see the youngsters growing up, and everyday life, eh? But if he's gone, he's missing those things. That's what bothers me a lot.
There to fall, I asked him to give up dragger fishing and go lobster fishing, so he'd be home. And he wouldn't know what to do with himself, the time on his hands. He said, I can't live like that. So he didn't live the way I wanted him to live. He lived the way he wanted to live. So I guess I should be thankful for that.
The way the Myers brothers got into the Port aux Basques fishery is a story in itself. After struggling for years inshore, they were making only their second trip to the more lucrative winter fishery. For the Myers brothers, it was an uphill battle all the way. First, they had to get a quota, a real hassle, took over a year. Then they needed a bigger boat, by rights a new one, but they couldn't afford it. So they came up with another plan, a novel idea that caught the attention of the local newspaper, the Northern Pen. With the help of their relatives and friends, they made over their old boat at a fraction of the cost. They stripped her down, built a new wheelhouse, and made a bigger fish hole. The Myers had won. They had beaten all the odds, except one.
Boy, they work like dogs. Every favor that Dave knowed he had, he called them in. And every, you know, their own families, all their brother-in-laws, everything like that on each side went and helped. They had some help at that boat.
It was all free labor, wasn't it?
All free labor. We used to cook the meals and bring it up to them. Oh, I used to be cooking sometimes for 14 or 15 men.
And they wound up getting the whole job done for about 20,000 in the end.
Something like that, yeah.
Because of all the help they were able to get.
Oh, yes. Well, it was only material and stuff like that, eh? And they even, like their electronic jobs and everything. New friends here, new friends there. A little favor for you and you do one for me, and they got it all done cheap, eh? So they've really done it good. And this winter fishery would have put them on, as you say, on a clean sheet, eh? Things don't work that way. Because they could have done good enough by staying around home. It was good enough for all of us. Because we never asked for nothing big, for sure. I can stay at home. But it wasn't good enough for them.
Well, I suppose everybody wants to provide as best they can for their family,
Yeah.
don't they?
Oh, yes. And that is what they were doing. Yeah, they had to do good. Because for the troubles they had with their boat, if it was anyone else, they had it thrown in. They never got a hit, not once. They go once to the hit, they got two back, every time. They got the boat and they got it to gallnets. Oh, gallnet fishing was good then, huh? By the time they got at it, the gallnet fishery was gone. So then they read, well, we'll get the dragger's license. So they fight for one whole year, made a dozen trips to St. John, they got a dragger's license. When they got the dragger's license, they got that on. Then the fish wasn't that good in the draggers either. But it was no way in discouraging them. Never a year hardly they got their quota on that. They didn't, but we'll get it next year. We never got it the year, no problem. We'll get it next year. So then they decided, we'll go to Port aux Basques, we'll make it there.
After all that, to have this happen this year.
Oh, my dear. Because there was no way in discouraging them from the water. No way.
The loss of the Myers three led to all kinds of rumors and idle gossip. There was talk that the boat was overloaded, that the brothers waited too long before heading for shelter. But if anyone was assessing blame, it certainly wasn't other fishermen. They knew better. They knew it could just as easily have been them. In a heartening display of solidarity, fellow fishermen agreed to catch the Myers quota and to pass along the money to their families.
So I guess you want to take part in that,
oh, yes,
Isaac?
Definitely do.
You know, and I think...
I think a lot do, too. A lot of fishermen, everyone, for as I can say, want to take a part in it.
Even to this day, fishermen like Cliff Doyle bristle at any suggestion that the Myers somehow might have brought the disaster on themselves.
A fisherman has no control over the weather. He very often goes when he shouldn't go, but he goes because he has to go. And if one fisherman goes, then generally all the fishermen go, and it doesn't make any difference the size of your boat. You know, you have to go out there and you have to get your share while the fish is there. It's not something like trees in a forest where if you don't cut them today, you can cut them tomorrow. They're still going to be there in the same place. Fish doesn't work that way. If you don't catch it today and it's out there, then don't go looking for it tomorrow. It just may not be there, you know. So I think it was very, very cruel statements of a number of people to say that, you know, they kind of brought this on themselves. Because it's just a luck of the draw, you know, that you go out there and you get into a big storm, and, you know, it could have just as easily been a half a dozen boats lost that day as one boat. You get out there, the wind comes on, and if everything goes good, you'll make it back to shore. If you just have a little problem, it can be the end of you, you know.
Cliff Doyle wouldn't get any argument from the crew of this boat. They ran aground the same night the Myers 3 sank. If local residents hadn't been close by, they might have died too. All 5 men on the Myers 3 were well known and well liked in their community. Each will be missed in his own way. But the loss of Dave Myers, seen here in a television interview not long before his death, left an especially deep void. David was the community leader.
I know about 6 or 7 fishermen are not going to sell any fish or whatever. They're not getting a good deal and they're not going to sell their fish.
It was Dave Myers who got the community its own fish plant. He and his wife Susan ran it together.
He said, if it's the last thing I do, he said, I'll make that plant in Bartlett's everywhere. And it wasn't the very last thing he done, because that's the last place he worked, last summer. And it was really doing good.
And Dave was involved in everything else too, wasn't he?
Everything around. Everything, the development, every committee. Well, he was the only committee here. Because whatever was done, everyone come to he. Everything around. He, like the water line and everything else. He had that all arranged for a new one. But now everything is gone down the drain. But he was interested in whatever he could do for anybody, he was there to do it. For sure. Yeah.
He kept on the politicians and everything.
Oh, he behind him right there. I guarantee everyone knows him. He never stopped going to meetings. Cornerbrook, Crane Falls, Gander, wherever's meeting, he'd be there.
He'd drag you along.
Oh, we used to go. Yes, wouldn't go, but we go, sir. Kids get a scatter trip out of it, but I used to get everyone. Yes, we'd be always on the run. Yeah. He loved it. I used to go sit down, lying face and bored to death, hey? Because I'm not interested in stuff like that. But he'd be more interested in every word he'd hear, and I hear every word. No, I wouldn't get it. You heard it? No, I never heard it. I wasn't listening, I'd say. I wasn't even interested in it, sir. But he was. I'd be more interested in the dance. But not Dave. He'd be interested. Every word just said he knows it. And he could argue about it too, I tell you. Because that was his favorite thing, arguing. Argue with anybody. Yeah. Yes, I really, he'll be well missed here, I'd say. As a community, eh?
Well, David Myers, he was one of the men who was the most influential in the community, right? He had control of everything. Everything that happened here, he had a hand into it, right? So when we lost him, well, the community just went to a standstill. He was always the man to go to. He was always there if you needed a hand or wanted somebody to talk to, right? You'll never be forgotten. Never. Never's a long time, but you'll never be forgotten.
A Sunday afternoon in late summer, in a meadow overlooking the spot where the Myers 3 sank. Today, hundreds of people are here for a special memorial service. They've come in droves from Bartlett's Harbor, from Reefs Harbor, from all over western Newfoundland. They've come to remember. They've come to pray.
We honor today James and Clarence and Joseph and David and Ewan. We pray to God that they will be with him in his kingdom. And we pray for you, his family, and those who love them when they were here, that God may continue to assist and strengthen you.
The Lord God will wipe away the tears from every cheek. He will take away his people's shame everywhere on earth, for the Lord has said so.
Like a shepherd he feeds his flock and gathers the lambs in his arms, holding them carefully close to his heart, leading them home.
Each of us, my dear friends, mourn in our own personal way.
because each of us has a personal relationship to those who have died. And no one can really understand our mourning. And yet, in the midst of our mourning, we can all hear these words of Jesus Christ. Hear the words of Jesus Christ, who says to us today, I am going to prepare a place for you too, so that where I am, where those who have died are, you can be there too. I am the way, the truth, and the life, says Jesus Christ. Whoever follows me will live forever. Amen.
Leave your fishing nets drying on the shore. Leave your wood and bows, for the Lord is calling you to follow him. Fishers now of men, fishers now of men. Lord, I'll go with you, walking by your side, learning eagerly. Only let me hear you say those words again. Come and follow me. Come and follow me.
Later, at the tiny cemetery in Bartlett's Harbor, the widows are putting up a private memorial to their husbands. The 4 wooden crosses are coming down to be replaced by a large common stone, symbolic of how the brothers lived and how they died, together as one. The widows will carry on with their lives. They must, for themselves and for the sake of their children. Their husbands wouldn't want it any other way. But the monument will stand forever as a testimonial to the good years, to the memories they will cherish always. Nothing, not even the mighty Atlantic, can ever take them away.